My wife, she's doing something very deceitful, a betrayal, a toxic backstabbing. She downloaded that little flame icon on her phone some people call Tinder. And I've caught her red-handed flirting with many guys, but oh, it gets so much worse than that. There was something haunting about that orange flame icon on my phone. It wasn't just an app. It was a symbol of how I was losing Lissandra. Lissandra, my wife, the love of my life. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart watching her messages with various men on Tinder. It wasn't physical, but it was a betrayal nonetheless. Years ago, when Lissandra and I promised to stand by each other, quote, for better or for worse, I never thought that we'd be brought down by a mobile phone app. I confronted her, and the following week was a blur. We sought counseling, spoke to professionals, and spent countless nights discussing where we went wrong. Each explanation she gave felt like a dagger. I just wanted to feel seen, she'd say. I was at a loss, had I been so blind to her needs. But life doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. As I grappled with the rift in my marriage, tragedy struck again. My father, the rock of my life, passed away. It was a sudden demise from a heart attack. My mother had left me 10 years prior, and leaving me feeling the sting of isolation. I was truly on my own. Nostalgia struck hard as the memories of my childhood surrounded me. My dad's cherished armchair, the echoing laughter of my mother. In their absence, their home felt cold and large. Lissandra tried to be there, but every gesture, every word was shadowed by the mistrust between us. However, amidst this emotional turmoil, there was a twist. My father had led a very prosperous lifestyle. He amassed a lot of wealth and assets, which now, as his only child, was mine. The worth of everything was right at $2 million. With such a huge inheritance, you'd expect some form of joy or relief, but the loneliness only deepened it. Old friends certainly turned overly nice, and every act of kindness seemed tainted with ulterior motives. I was on guard, lost and without any sense of direction. One day, as I sifted through piles of condolence letters and financial documents, a distinct envelope caught my eye. It was a crisp white paper, embossed emblem. The weight of it was from a very high-end law firm. Opening it, I was met with legal jargon about the crux, but it was clear. My cousin, whom I had not even seen or spoken to since our teenage years, was challenging my father's will. He was demanding 50% split of the inheritance. Why now? Why him? We haven't been close, hadn't even seen each other in years, yet here he was, at one of the lowest points in my life, demanding what I believed was rightfully mine. Lissandra and I, amidst our problems, found unity in this new adversity. She was shocked, just as much as I was. Maybe he's going through a tough time, honey, she hypothesized, but it didn't make any sense. This was family, and family doesn't kick you when you're down. Days turned to weeks as I grappled with this new development. Lawyer meetings, documentation, it was overwhelming. Lissandra, despite our unresolved issues, stood by my side. But the uncertainty was evident. It was, if my cousin won, everything would change. I often found myself staring at the legal papers as my father's signature, wondering about the choices I had to make. How do I navigate this minefield? How do I ensure my father's wishes are respected? But like all things, this narrative too needs time to unfold. For now, I stand at a crossroad, not really knowing which path to take. Hoping for clarity amidst the chaos, I come to you guys for help. Comment number 1 of the original post. Man, I can't believe you stayed with her for so long as you did. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. Once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. You should really prioritize your mental well-being and happiness. It might be time to evaluate if this relationship is worth salvaging or if you're better off starting fresh. Comment 2. Dude, are you for real? I get that marriage is a commitment, but come on. Emotional cheating is cheating. If she's doing this now, what guarantees she won't escalate things later? You need to respect yourself more, take a step back, maybe spend time alone or with close friends and really think about what you want in life. Comment 3. I'm sorry you're going through this, especially the loss of your parents, and it sounds like a lot to handle. Remember to take care of yourself and seek therapy when needed. Whether you decide to stay with Lisa or move on, make sure it's a decision that brings you a bit of peace. Update number 1. The weeks following the unsettling letter felt like navigating a ship through a storm. Every day brought its own set of waves. I'm talking lawyers, paperwork, or even emotions accompanying this saga. But one day, the storm turned into a hurricane when my cousin, Paul, decides to make an appearance at my workplace. I was knee-deep in work when my assistant buzzed through the intercom, her voice strained with unease. There's someone here to see you. He says he's family? Suspicions gnawed at me as I stepped out of my office, and there in the waiting room was Paul. It's been years, but he looked just as if I remembered. Only now there was a hardened look in his eyes, one that years of discontent and resentment had carved. Can we talk? Gesturing towards the exit, the audacity to show up at my place of work was one thing, but to ask to go to lunch was beyond belief. Paul, this is not the right place, man, I replied, trying to keep my voice even. For a second, there was a look of genuine hurt on his face, but then something snapped. Your father practically raised me. I lived under his roof for a decade. Do you know what it feels like to be taken in out of pity because your parents are junkies? I did know, growing up, our household was full of a mix of emotions. Sympathy for Paul, pride in my father for his kindness, and an undertone of tension. Paul's parents lost to addiction and have been incarcerated, leaving a young boy in turmoil. I understood that. My father, despite having a family of his own, did not hesitate. He opened up our doors and our hearts to Paul. But that day at my office, any semblance of that familial bond was shattered, as Paul's voice grew louder. Drawing a crowd of curious onlookers, security was summoned. They forcefully escorted him out, and his shouts echoed long after he was gone. My boss called me into his office soon after, and his stern gaze was enough to tell me I was skating on thin ice. Listen, I understand family problems, but this is a professional environment. He warned me, and I nodded. I had a bit of shame and frustration in my mind, and that night I returned home hoping to find some solace in Lissandra. Yet, upon entering, an eerily familiar scene unfolded. I spotted Lissandra's phone discarded on the coffee table, screen lit up with notifications from a dating app. My heart sunk. Was it Tinder? Or a new platform? Either way, the sting of betrayal was all too familiar. Summoning the little patience I had left, I narrated the day's ordeal to her. Her response was expected. Maybe you should just give him the money, she murmured, not meeting my gaze, and I felt a surge of anger. Give him the money? After what Dad did for him? After the way he disrespected me today? The weight of everything, the betrayal, the unexpected legal battle, the grief, it was too much to bear. Without another word, I grabbed a blanket and settled on the couch for the night, and as the quiet of the night enveloped me, I felt lost. A ship amidst a storm without an anchor. Lying there, I realized I need advice and perspectives from outside of this. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? How do I navigate this without losing everything dear to me? Update number 2. The day of reckoning arrived after a lot of months. Well, the courtroom, with its high ceilings and imposing demeanor, was packed. Lawyers, witnesses, reporters, curious onlookers, all waiting to see the outcome of this family feud. I took a deep breath as I entered, feeling the weight of every decision, every moment that had led me here. My lawyer, a stern man with a penchant for detail, briefed me for the last time. We were prepared, but across the room, Paul looked equally confident, surrounded by his legal team. His eyes locked onto mine with a mix of defiance and a bit of determination, and the proceedings started. Both sides presented their arguments, but the air grew tense when the judge finally spoke. Given the evidence and the significant role of the deceased played in raising the claimant, I cannot award a 50% split, no. However, considering the years spent under the deceased guardianship, I will grant a 30% split of assets in the favor of the claimant warranted. I felt a rush of anger, frustration, disbelief. 30%? That was a significant chunk of my inheritance, and with it, my chance at a debt-free future. I thought of the mounting college loans, the looming house payment, a decision influenced heavily by Lissandra's insistence on a lifestyle beyond our means. We lived in a house that was a constant reminder of our financial folly. Now, giving up almost a third of my inheritance meant that even after settling my debts, my savings would be wiped out. After the verdict, Paul vanished. Not a trace, no forwarding addresses, just an account where the money was transferred. His absence was like a mocking reminder of the betrayal, and we were family, bonded by blood and the years of shared history, yet here I was, betrayed by the very bond I held sacred. Returning home, I hoped for a semblance of peace, maybe even a comforting word from Lissandra. Instead, as I walked in, I saw her, phone in hands, eyes wide with panic. Before I could react, she stood up and tossed the phone in the toilet, effectively erasing whatever incriminating evidence that she was obviously trying to hide. The room went silent except for the echo of dripping water. My heart raced as I pieced everything together. Another secret, another betrayal. Who is it? Who is it, Lissandra? I demanded, but her eyes teary, face devoid of color. With everything coming to a head, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair. I was drowning, trapped in a life that was spiraling out of control. That night, once again, I found myself on the couch, the silence around me deafening and the thought of divorce obviously crossing my mind. But the financial implications of that, coupled with the recent blows, made it seem like a distant dream. As I write down this update, I feel isolated, and it's overwhelming. I'm trapped in a world where trust seems like a luxury and hope is fading. If you were in my shoes, facing such heartbreak and betrayal, what would be your next step? Guys, I need help rebuilding my life, piece by piece. Update number 3. The days following the courtroom battle were a blur. The weight of the verdict, Paul's betrayal, Lissandra's secrets, and the impending financial doom loomed large. I had braced myself for more bad news, more storms, but life, with its unpredictable twist and turn, had something else in store. Oh boy. One evening, as I sat contemplating a whirlwind, Lissandra walked into the room. Her demeanor unusually somber, and she hesitated for a moment, took a deep breath, and whispered, "I'm pregnant." Shock, surprise, joy, a cascade of emotions. We had been trying for a child for years. Navigating the heartbreak of, well, amazing this is with infertility, and now in the midst of the chaos, life has granted us this unexpected gift. That's incredible, I stammered, tears forming in my eyes. However, as I looked at Lissandra, something seemed off. Instead of the radiant joy I expected her face, it was a mask of uncertainty and apprehension. I asked her, "Aren't you happy?" She forced a smile with a voice wavering. Of course I am. It's just overwhelming with everything happening, you know." But something in her eyes told a different story. Yet, as the weeks went by, our relationship began to show signs of healing. Our couples therapy sessions bore fruit. The therapist, a wise old man with an uncanny knack for understanding human emotions, provided us with, well, a few tools and strategies to rebuild our bond. We began to reconnect in ways I had almost forgotten was possible. Date nights, laughing fits over the silliest things, and shared dreams of our future family become our new normal. Financially, things started looking up. I made a conscious effort to get our finances back on track. Using a significant chunk of the inheritance, I managed to pay off our home, a move that brought immense relief. Additionally, a good portion of my looming college debt was paid down, easing a bit of financial burden that's been choking me for years. I'm reflecting on everything, and I do think it's incredible how life can change in the blink of an eye. From the depths of despair, we were now on a path of hope. The baby, our beacon, well, seemed to be a herald of a new chapter, though uncertainty still lingered, especially concerning Lissandra's true feelings about the pregnancy. As I wrap up this update, I'm reminded of the old age adage. After the darkest night, there's a bright day ahead, and while our journey is far from over, it seems like the dawn is finally breaking. I'll be back for yet another update, hopefully filled with joy and a lot less chaos. Update number 4. Guys, it's been said that curiosity is a double-edged sword, and tonight I feel it sharp. My life, once filled with hope and promise, has crumbled down into a treacherous maze of deceit, where every corner held a revelation more shocking than the last. Buckle your seatbelts. I should have let go of the phone incident. I should have focused on the future, but something was just gnawing at me. A lingering doubt that refused to be silent, so against my better judgment, I reached out to the phone company. I wanted closure, clarity, a fresh start. But what I got instead was a descent into a nightmare I could have never imagined. It took weeks, but finally a representative got back to me from the phone company. With my financial ties to the account, I was granted access to the entire chat log of Lissandra's phone. The recovery process was laborious, but when the messages poured in, each one was a stab to the heart. It wasn't just the numerous conversations with strangers from Tinder, though that alone was heart-wrenching. Oh no. Buried amidst the flurry of messages was a name I hoped had never to resurface again. Paul. That's right, my cousin. Their exchanges were very, intimate, filled with plans, dreams, plots. As I scrolled through, I pieced together a picture that left me reeling. Guys, get this. Lissandra, my wife, the woman I've promised to stand by in sickness and in health, had not only been in a romantic relationship with Paul, but had orchestrated the entire courtroom drama. The text that laid it all out. The plan to trap me in a legal battle to exhaust my inheritance, all with the end goal of her running away with my cousin, Paul. But that's not it. The ultimate blow was yet to come. Amidst the deceitful plans and sordid declarations of love was an admission that shook me to the core. Lissandra's recent pregnancy, the supposed silver liner in our stormy life, might not even be mine. The timelines match up perfectly with her rendezvous with Paul, making him a potential father to the unborn child. I could not breathe. I could not think. The walls of our home, the very foundations of my life, seemed to close in on me. Without a word, without confronting Lissandra, I packed a bag, grabbed whatever essentials I could think of, and I just left. I'm writing this update from a dimly lit hotel room. There's a steady hum of the AC, and the only sound accompanying my thoughts. My phone, it remains switched off, my connection to the outside world severed for now. The path forward is very unclear, but one thing's for certain. A divorce is imminent. I can't look at Lissandra, can't even bear the thought of sharing the same space with her after all of this. Update number 5. The last 3 months have felt like some surreal dream, to be honest with you guys. The feeling of betrayal and the realization of Lissandra's deceit and the impending divorce had consumed me. But life has always had its own plans, and a twisted fate awaited me that I had not quite prepared for. It was quite an evening when I received a call from a number I had not seen in months. Lissandra's voice, shaky and tentative, filled with silence. We need to talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed for a meetup. She chose a quiet cafe, a place where we, had shared countless coffees and dreams together in the past. When I saw her, the signs of strain were evident. The pregnancy had advanced, and she seemed the shadow of the vibrant woman I once loved. Without any preamble, she slid an envelope across the table. I did a DNA test. I had to know for myself, for us, for the child. I glanced at the report, and my heart was in my throat. The words were clear. The baby was mine. We were going to have a son. The weight of this revolution was profound. I felt a cocktail of emotions, joy at the prospect of becoming a father, mixed with the bitter sting of her betrayal. Lissandra pleaded with me, claiming that the DNA test was her attempt to salvage our marriage, to provide a fresh start, but as I looked into her eyes, I could not help but wonder, was this a genuine gesture of repentance, or was she motivated by the inheritance ruling, which granted me the lion's share? Despite the DNA results, my decision was firm. The trust that we've had, it was broken. The love which had once been the foundation of our relationship was now buried beneath layers of deceit. The next time I saw Lissandra was in the sterile environment of a hospital room. She was in labor, and despite our differences, I could not bear the thought of not being there for the birth of my son. The atmosphere was tense and our exchanges were very minimal, but when our son came into the world, for a brief moment everything else faded away. However, that momentary lapse into semblance of a family was short-lived. As soon as our son was healthy and stable, I presented Lissandra with divorce papers right then and there. She even signed them with tears in her eyes, but I was resolute. My priorities were clear. My son. Later, she received the paperwork for the custody battle I initiated, where I sought full rights over our boy. Now, as I sit alone contemplating the court case that looms ahead, I'm filled with a bit of uncertainty. Will the judge even see my side? Will I be granted full custody? I don't know. I'll be back with another update once the dust settles. Update number 6. Guys, I actually almost forgot to update this. Time flies, especially when life throws you curveballs. The past year's been a whirlwind. It's a crazy mix of lows and highs, tears and laughters, and for those who followed my story, I owe you this update, and believe me, it's quite a ride. The divorce proceedings were grueling. Lawyers, accusations, emotions, everything running high. I mean, it honestly felt like an absolute nightmare that would never end. Unfortunately, I could not prove that Lissandra's infidelity, and due to legal loopholes, she managed to claim 50% of my assets in the divorce. It felt like another heavy blow, like life was insisting on testing me at every turn. The one solace, the one victory I could hold on to was winning full custody of our son. Given Lissandra being completely unstable financially and her dependence on me was very obvious, the judge deemed it in the best interests of our child that he stays with me. But the silver lining came with its cloud. Alimony. With half of my assets gone and a monthly payment looming over my head, it was hard to see the light. However, destiny had other plans. Guys, I've had this ritual for the past 6 years. Every single payday, without fail, I'd walk into my local gas station and buy a $20 scratch-off lottery ticket. Call it optimistic, or perhaps just a glimmer of hope, but it was my little indulgence. Most of the time, I'd end up with a minor win or nothing at all, but 11 months into this chaos, the stars aligned. I stood there, in the dim light of that gas station, scratching off the ticket like a maniac. Lo and behold, I won. Not a few thousand, not a few 100,000, a whopping 3 million after taxes. The irony was not lost upon me. Here I was, a man who's lost half his inheritance, now richer than he'd ever been. And the best part, given that Lissandra and I were officially over, divorced, gone, sayonara, she wasn't entitled to a penny. Now, with my newfound wealth, I decided on a fresh start. I moved with my little boy to a beautiful beach house, a place where the sounds of the waves could wash away the pain of the past, and the fresh ocean breeze could bring a promise of a brighter tomorrow. In the midst of rebuilding my life, I ventured into the world of dating apps. Albeit hesitantly, it was ironically on Tinder, the very app that was the source of so much of my anguish. I met Sarah. Sarah, with her, life felt different. She brought laughter, understanding, and a warmth that I had not felt in a long while. So here I am, guys, a year later, surrounded by tranquil sounds of the ocean and a wonderful woman by my side, and my son's laughter echoing in our home, and a heart that's finally healing. Well, that's it, guys. So that was very ironic at the end of this story, how OP finds some more new love from the same dating app that basically gave him misery for months on end. The biggest twist of the story, though, was Lissandra going for OP's cousin. I mean, what in the world? She even orchestrated the fact that he should come back and try to get a part of the inheritance. That's just crazy, toxic on a whole nother level. But I do want to hear from you guys about this story because this one goes deep. Go ahead, drop your comments downstairs in the comment section. Say, for instance, you were in OP's position and you just found out about these marital issues and you thought that it was only, well, Tinder dating and a few messages here and there, but you find out it gets so much crazier. Let me know exactly what you do. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate these stories every single day. Stop by tomorrow, see what the story is. I'll see you guys then. Hit that subscribe button, but remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!